read through Canto 11, Chapter 2. Maharaj Nimi meets the 9 Yogenders, text 43. But I thought you did text 43 yesterday, so I prepared for text 44. So we're also going to go on to text 44. Is that all right with everybody? And this is because there's a solar eclipse today, so we're going to have a long class. There's not another solar eclipse for... Well, the next one listed on my thing is like 200 years. Maybe you'll get just a little partial, but at least my thing is this. The next one is in 2255. Itya chutangrim bhajato nuvritya Bhaktir viraktir bhagavat prabodha Bhavanti vai bhagavatasya rajams Tata param shanti mupaiti sakshat Bhaktihi, devotion, viraktihi, detachment, Bhagavat Prabodha, knowledge of the personality of Godhead, Bhavanti, they manifest, Vai, indeed, Bhagavatasya, for the devotee, Rajan, O King Nimi, Tataha, then, Param Shantim, supreme peace, Upaiti, he attains Sakshat, directly. So just a reminder of the previous verse. So in the previous verse, we had an analogy between gaining bhakti and gaining satisfaction in eating, between directly perceiving the Lord and getting nourishment in eating, and between becoming detached from material things and being detached from hunger. So in the previous verse, we already said we get bhakti or devotion, direct perception, and detachment. So here we see basically the same exact thing is just being repeated. So translation, my dear king, the devotee who worships the lotus feet of the infallible personality of Godhead with constant endeavor thus achieves unflinching devotion, detachment, and experience knowledge of the personality of Godhead. So the same three things: devotion, experience of the Lord, and detachment. In this way, the successful devotee of the Lord achieves supreme spiritual peace. So this is an additional thing from the previous verse. Tata param shantim upaita shakshad. One gets a direct experience of peace. So the spiritual world is called Vaikunta. There's no anxiety, and material life means anxiety. Right? This morning, Tarni Radha sent me this quote where Prabhupada saying, actually there's no material world. Prabhupada often says this, there's no material world. The concept of a material world is simply a person who is in illusion and in anxiety perceives that there's a material world. As soon as one perceives peace, then everything, sarvakalamidam brahma, everything appears spiritual. And here we see peace comes about by bhakti, a direct experience of the Lord, and detachment. So purport, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 271, Pnaya kamam ya sarvam pumanch charati nispraha nirmano nirahankara sa santim abhigacchati. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. Srila Prabhupada comments, to become desireless means not to desire anything for sense gratification. In other words, desire for becoming Krishna consciousness is actually desirelessness. So here we're having a logical progression. How do you get peace? You get peace by giving up desires. So we are not the only ones who say this. The Buddhists also say this. So the distinction here, this is not just about giving up desires, it's about having unflinching devotion for the Lord. So here the commentator is quoting Srila Prabhupada saying, to desire to serve the Lord is not the kind of desire that one gives up. There's a similar statement in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 19:149, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama, Ateva Shanta, Bhukti Mukti Siddhikami, Shakala Ashanta. This is something Srila Prabhupada quotes a lot, this statement of Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami. Because a devotee of Lord Krishna is desireless, he is peaceful. Fruit of workers desire material enjoyment, jnanis desire liberation, and yogis desire material opulence. Therefore, they are all lusty and cannot be peaceful. So, bhukti mukti siddhikami, shakali ashanta. So if one wants bhukti, if one wants material enjoyment, if one wants money and good food and a favorable spouse and status in society and all these things, one is always in anxiety. Yes, one has anxiety to get them, one has anxiety to keep them. Then mukti, those who are desirous of mukti are also in anxiety. Am I going to get mukti? How am I going to get mukti? When am I going to get mukti? And siddhi, those who want mystic powers, the same thing. All of these, how will I get it? How will I keep it? So these are all kamis. They all have these personal desires. You notice it's all about themselves. And therefore they cannot be peaceful. And the Krishna Bhakta is nishkama, and therefore peaceful. Of course, the Krishna Bhakta has a desire, but it's a different kind of desire. Yeah? Just like the cells of the body, they have a desire to be an active, healthy part of the body. The heart muscles, they have a desire to be a good heart muscle. The brain cells, they have a desire to be a good brain cell. What happens when they have an independent desire? What do they become? Cancer. Exactly. The cancer cell, is it still in the body? It's in the body, yes. It's still part of the body. But does it experience its life as part of the body? No. So in the same way, when we desire selfishly, we become like a cancer cell in the universal body. And then we no longer experience that we are part of God. We are still part of God, but we don't experience like that. Just like the cancer cell, it no longer experiences that it's part of the body. So this desire of each cell to serve the body, that is not considered a desire exactly. It is just natural. Everybody understand? That's natural. That all of the cells in my skin and my brain and my heart, that they want to serve my body, that's natural. It's the way that it's supposed to be. Yes. Going on, generally there are three classes of living entities afflicted with selfish desires. They are the bhukti kami, mukti kami, and siddhi kami. Bhukti kami refers to those ordinary persons who desire money and everything money can buy. Such a primitive mentality is based on the desire to enjoy money, sex, and social prestige. When a living being becomes frustrated with this hallucination, he takes to the path of speculative philosophy and analytically tries to track down the source of illusion. Such a person is called mukti kami because he desires to negate material illusion and merge into an impersonal spiritual state free from anxiety. The mukti kami is also motivated by personal desire, although the desire is somewhat more elevated. So this is an irony. The mukti kami is looking for freedom from anxiety, but that way of looking also causes anxiety. They're looking for freedom, but they're looking for freedom and anxiety in a way that will cause them anxiety. Just like if a person is in a prison, if they are in a jail, and they want to get out of the jail by breaking the wall. They're thinking, in the jail I am suffering so much, let me escape. So will they also be in anxiety if they escape? Yes, constant anxiety, correct? Yes. Similarly, the city kami, or the mystic yogi, who desires the spectacular powers of mystic yoga, such as reaching one's hand across the world, or making oneself smaller than the smallest or lighter than the lightest, is also infected by material or selfish desire. Therefore it is said, Sakali Ashanta. If one has any personal desire, whether it be material, philosophical, or mystic, he will be Ashanta, or ultimately frustrated, because he will see himself as the central object of satisfaction. So this is the key to lack of peace. If we ourselves are feeling a lack of peace, this means we have this problem. It's a symptom that we think we are the central object of satisfaction. This egocentric concept is in itself illusory and therefore ultimately frustrating. On the other hand, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama, Ataiva Shanta, a devotee of Lord Krishna, is Niskama. He has no personal desire. His only desire is to please Krishna. Lord Shiva himself has praised this outstanding quality of the pure devotees of the Lord by stating, Narayana Parasarve, Na Kutashkana Bibhyati, Sarva Pagarva Narakeshu, Apitul Yarta Darshinaha. A person who is devoted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, is not afraid of anything. Elevation to the heavenly kingdom, condemnation to hell, and liberation from material bondage all appear the same to a devotee. Bhagavatam 6:17-28. To whom was Lord Shiva speaking here? And to whom was he, about whom was he speaking? He was speaking to Parvati about Chitraketu. Why? She was criticizing Chitraketu. She had cursed him, and then Chitraketu was like, it's okay, mother. You want me to be a demon? It's okay. So Lord Shiva spoke this verse. Although the impersonal philosopher proposes that everything is one, the devotees of the Lord is actually Tulyartha Darshi, or empowered with the vision of oneness. The devotee sees everything as the potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore desires to engage everything in the service of the Lord for the Lord's satisfaction. Since a devotee does not see anything as Dvitiya, or outside the scope of the Lord's potency, he is happy in any situation. Having no personal desire, the devotee of Krishna is actually Shanta, or peaceful, because he has achieved the perfection of life, love of Krishna. He is actually situated in his eternal constitutional position under the direct shelter and protection of the omnipotent Parameshwara Krishna. According to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, this verse ends the answer given by the first of the 9 Yogindras, Kavi, to Maharaj Nimi's first question, what is the highest good? Now, this next verse we're going to go to may seem a little surprising because it may seem that Kavi has already answered this question. So let's go on to text 44. This is the introduction to 3 of the most important verses in the Bhagavatam, which are frequently quoted by Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas. Shiraja Vacha Ata Bhagavatam's Bruta, Yad Dharmo Yad Risho Nirnam, Yata Charati Yad Brute, Yar Lingar Bhagavat Priyaha. Shiraja Uvacha, the king spoke, Ata next, Bhagavatam, about the devotee of the personality of Godhead. Bruta, please tell me. Yad Dharmaha, having what duties? Yad Drisha, having what nature? Niryam, among men. Yata, how? Acharati, he behaves. Yat, what? Brute, he speaks. Yahi, by which? Lingai, visible symptoms. Bhagavat Priya, he is known as one dear to the Supreme Lord. So let us see what has happened here. So Kavi has described the devotee. What has he described about the devotee? Pure and selfless, what else? Yeah? Affection for the Supreme Lord. Okay, somebody else? Detachment from material things? Attachment for the Lord? Associating with devotees? What else? Don't desire liberation? Don't mind. When I went to school, the teacher would always stop me and call on other people because I always knew all the answers, so don't mind. Used to bother me also. Somebody else? What else? We just said, come on, in text 43. Huh? Knowledge, what else? Peace, thank you. Now, there may be a natural question. What does that look like practically? So if I just say to you, all right, everybody, you should be humble, you should be peaceful, you should be detached, you should have devotion to the Lord. What do I do? What does that look like? Does Arjuna ask a similar question in the Bhagavad Gita? Where? Where does Arjuna ask a very similar question? Yes. Second, you're very close. How does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? How does he walk? Yes, Arjuna is asking almost the identical question at the end of the second chapter. What does it look like practically? Right? Now, it's interesting in this translation because the translation has things in it that are not part of the verse. And I'm thinking this is pulling from the next verses. So it's as if the answer that's being given by Havi, somehow the translator decided to assume Maharaj Nimi's question based on Havi's answer. But Maharaj Nimi doesn't actually ask this question. The translation given here is Maharaj Nimi said, now please tell me in greater detail about the devotees of the Supreme Lord. What are the natural symptoms? Now this part he doesn't say. By which I can distinguish between the most advanced devotees, those on the middle level, and those who are neophytes. He actually didn't ask that question. That's not in the Sanskrit. I'm assuming the translator put this here because Havi answered in that way, and therefore perhaps Havi assumed that King Nimi was implying this question. I respectfully disagree. I don't think that necessarily King Nimi had this concept of gradations. Going on with the translation given here, what are the typical religious activities of a Vaishnava? That is, he asked. Yes, what is the Dharma? How does he speak? That he asks. Specifically, please describe those symptoms and characteristics by which Vaishnavas become dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he's asking for the Dharma, Yadrisha, Acharati, and Brute. So what are their duties? What are their nature? What do they do? What do they say? And he says lingai. Lingai means a visible form. So he's asking how the mentality and the mood of a devotee, which has already been explained by Kavi, how does this manifest in behavior? Yes? So we talk about body, mind, and speech. Yes, behavior, words, and mind. And as we'll see tomorrow, and actually the next few days, I'm thinking tomorrow, is it okay if I drink water during the eclipse or no? Because I don't think I can go for so many hours, okay, speaking. Is that all right? Oh, I have your okay. Water's okay. It's prasadam. Already, okay. I have given classes while doing Nirjal, but not so long. You're going to have me giving a 2.5-hour class. I don't think I can do without water. So the purport for text 45 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pages. That'll be tomorrow's. So what I'm thinking I'll do tomorrow is just part, and then Bhanuswami can also speak on the same verse when he comes. But the next 3 verses, 45, 46, 47, Havi describes the levels of devotees. He's going to describe the topmost, the middle, and the beginner. And his descriptions are the main way that these different classes of devotees are described. So I find it interesting that the BBT editors decided in this purport. First of all, I found it interesting that they added this question to the translation. And I also find it interesting that they go to another description of the categories of devotees in the purport. So we will read this purport. The great sage Kavi has informed King Nimi about the general external symptoms of a devotee of the Lord, namely his appearance, personal qualities, and activities. But now King Nimi asks how to make further distinctions among the... See, I don't agree with this at all. I see that Havi has given the internal mood and not the external symptoms. And here King Nimi is asking, what are the external symptoms? Now King Nimi asks how to make further distinctions among the servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead so that the first class, second class, and lower class Vaishnavas can be clearly identified. And now the commentator is moving to a completely different description than what Havi is going to give. According to Srila Rupa Goswami, Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta, one should mentally honor any devotee who chants the holy name of Lord Krishna, Upadeshamrita 5. Any living entity who is faithfully chanting the holy name of Krishna is to be considered a Vaishnava, and at least within the mind is to be offered respect. But for practical advancement in Krishna consciousness, one should associate at least with a second-class devotee. And if one can receive the mercy of a first-class devotee of the Lord, one's perfection is very easily guaranteed. Thus, Nimi Maharaj is humbly inquiring, what are the character, behavior, and speech of devotees? The king wants to know the particular symptoms of body, mind, and speech by which the different categories, Uttama Adhikari, Majjhima Adhikari, and Kanistha Adhikari, are clearly identified. In response to the king's inquiry, another of the Nava Yogendras, namely Havir, will give a further elaboration of the science of Krishna consciousness. So with your permission, I see this quite differently, if that's okay. These are not Prabhupada's purports, so I feel that that's acceptable. Is that all right? So here I see he's asking, what are the external symptoms? So why would someone ask, what are the external symptoms? What would be a motive for King Nimi to say? Whatever's internal, it affects outside. Yes, face is the index of the mind. But why would he want to know? What usefulness will it have for him? Well, he hasn't asked according to level. So Havi will answer according to level. And we'll touch on that today. That will be more for tomorrow, but we'll touch on that today. Because it couldn't be answered. Well, no, we'll get to that. I won't jump. Why else would the king be asking? He's not asking about levels. He's just asking about external symptoms. What would be his reason? Yeah, okay, but you've skipped a step. What you're saying is correct, but you've skipped a step. There's an assumption you're making that you haven't verbalized. So he'll respect and not offend. Yes, to be able to recognize. We all have experience that we do not know someone else's mood and motives. I mean, there are people called empaths. I know some devotees who are empaths, who are able to sense other people's motives. But even they cannot tell 100%. And it's said by Mahaprabhu that it is very difficult to tell who is a Vaishnava. It's very difficult to tell. Why is that? Because the Vaishnava and the ordinary person, in many ways, everybody's eating, everybody's sleeping. Many great Vaishnavas, they have families, children. Bhaktivinoda was a judge. I was just hearing Prabhupada today talk about how Bhaktivinoda was a judge. Prabhupada ran a pharmaceutical company. Sometimes you hear devotees saying, oh, if you don't work full-time for the ISKCON mission, you are lower. And well, that's going to be a problem for Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktivinoda then. They gave up when, in end of life. Prabhupada gave up at Vanaprastha, you give up. Yes. The brahmachari, vanaprastha, and sannyasi, they don't have job and career. Students, retired, and dead people, they don't work. Right? But anyway, somebody's running a pharmaceutical business. 2 people are running. How do you know? I mean, people would say, oh yes, he's a very pious person, this Abhaicharan, he's a very religious person. But did they actually recognize that he was a Mahabhagavat? Some people, but generally no. I was thinking about this when I was in Vrindavan a few weeks ago. Srila Prabhupada was living in Vrindavan as a vanaprastha and then as a sannyasi. And there's so many Vaishnavas in Vrindavan. Everywhere you go, there's this Baba and that Baba. There's so many sannyasis. If you paid dandavats every time you saw a sannyasi in Vrindavan, you would never get your face off the ground whole day, And you don't know. You cannot tell just walking down the street who is bona fide, who is not bona fide. Most of you have been to Vrindavan, right? So many. One after another, after another, after another, after another. Whole crowds of people are going there, all having kirtan, and they're... By the way, I'm noticing now, at Govardhan, people doing Parikram of Govardhan, many of them now are chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. This was not the case a few years ago. I mean, they're also chanting other things, Radhe, Radhe, Sham, Radhe, and other things. But more and more, maybe like 75%, they're doing Parikrama, chanting the whole Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So that was very nice. But anyway, you're seeing so many people. They have tilak and kanti and bead bag, Vaishnav Vesh, everything. How do you know? And I was thinking, maybe there's somebody here on some Mahabhagavat here that I am passing on the road and I am not recognizing. I thought, just like Prabhupada, he was not, some people, but not all. So how will we recognize? Because like you're saying, we want to give respect. You're saying we don't want to offend, the positive, the negative. Also, we are told to associate. Yes? Satam prasango mama virya sambhada bhavanti vidkarna rasayana kata. Tajosana jatvapavarga vartmani shraddha ratir bhakti anukramishati. That if we're going to ourselves attain bhakti, we have to associate with devotees. We have to know who's a devotee. Maharaj Nimi might have gotten very enthused by these descriptions and think, I want to be a devotee. I hope we all think like that. We're reading these and thinking, yes, I want to have bhakti and I want to see the Lord. I want material detachment. I want peace. I hope some of us, at least, we were thinking like that. How can I get it? I get it by associating with devotees who already have it. I have to know who's a devotee. Otherwise, I may associate with the wrong person. And what is another reason that King Nimi may be asking? So first is so he can see who is a devotee to associate with, and what might be another very important reason. Besides looking at other people with whom to associate. to get instruction from others. So this is being able to tell who is a devotee. But what else? Huh? To follow the right person. Okay, good. But what else? There's something else, different category. Get out of this box. Get out of this box of looking at other people. And why else would King Nimi want to know? That's, again, to tell who I should be with. Huh? Who to avoid, okay. How do I identify an atheist? Okay, we're still looking outward. Okay, how could I set an example for others? But I think let's go a little bit deeper than that. How to recognize others? So I can associate with them, I can get instruction from them, I can avoid those who are not devotees, I can avoid those who are atheists, and something else. Yes, how to judge myself. How to judge myself. Isn't this very related to the verse we read about eating? Srila Prabhupada would quote this verse about eating always in relationship to ourselves. Not to others, always. He would say, when you are advancing in Krishna consciousness, you do not need to get a certificate. We sometimes give certificates. We sometimes give certificates. You know, oh, you are taking shelter and chanting 4 rounds, you get a certificate. You know, you answered the Bhagavad Gita quiz, you get a certificate. Bhakti Shastri, we get a... I have my Bhakti Shastri. I'm very proud of my Bhakti Shastri certificate. That was funny, actually. Best devotee of the year. I was teaching Bhakti Shastri for 15 years without myself having a Bhakti Shastri degree. And then after a while, I thought I should get the degree. So I thought best test would be if I take the exam. I didn't want to take the course. I thought that is silly. But I thought best is if I take the exam without doing any studying at all. Because I've been teaching whole Bhakti Shastri course. I taught 15 times, 15 years. So I got only 2 questions wrong, so I was very proud. I got the certificate. I don't know where that is. I think it's at my youngest son's house. I never put it on the wall or anything, but I got my Bhakti Shastri certificate with high honors. Yes. So we may give out our certificates. But honestly, just because I have a Bhakti Shastri certificate with high honors doesn't mean I'm a devotee. You understand? Prabhupada said you don't get a certificate from others. Just like when you're eating. You know, when I'm eating, I don't ask somebody else, did I eat enough? If I did this in India, then I don't know how many kilos I would weigh, but it would be, I would need 3 asanas to sit on if I always asked the cook, did I eat enough? Because the cook would always say no. Am I correct? 1 more dosa, 1 more idli. Who knows if I have eaten enough? I know. I don't need some certificate. You have eaten enough. Why? Because I feel sad. My electricity has gone away too. There we go. Because I feel satisfaction, yes, some pleasure, nourishment, and my hunger has gone away, and therefore I say, I have eaten enough. Prabhupada said in the same way, when we are doing bhakti, when we are engaging in the activities of bhakti, we should be feeling some devotion, some affection for Krishna should be arising in our heart, and we should have some experience of the presence of God, and we should be becoming detached from material things. But someone may say, well, these are very subjective. Just like we were talking about understanding others. I need some external symptoms. Because otherwise somebody can say, I love God. In every religion we find people like this. Film actors, yes. Yes. But in every religion, not even actors, in every religion. One time I drove a devotee to the hospital for a surgery on a Sunday morning. And in America on a Sunday morning, they have these Christian preachers on television. They call them televangelists. Yes. So I think this was the first time I ever saw one. They had a television in the waiting room at the hospital. And this guy was speaking all rubbish. I mean, it was just total rubbish. He was saying, Jesus wants you to be rich. The way you know if you're a godly person is if you're rich. And see how rich I am. And if you want to be rich like me, send me $5 and I will send you a magic piece of cloth to put under your pillow that will make you rich. Seriously, I'm not making this up. I was just looking at this on the television and saying, wow. And then after that, they had all these people holding hands and saying, I love Jesus. Now you see this kind of thing, and you see this among the Hindus also. Oh, I am loving Krishna so much. Do you chant? I am always chanting in my heart. So people can, and they fool themselves also, these people, by the way. Some of these people, they're actual, like, rogues and thieves using God. It may be the current that goes, oh, there we go, goes off and on. Yes? So we have to be careful. We want to know what are symptoms, but we can also fool ourselves, yes? If we're honest, we'll know that we have fooled ourselves. And if you haven't seen this yet, just keep chanting Hare Krishna. I promise you, you will see it. If you don't want to see it, please stop chanting Hare Krishna right now and go away. Because Krishna will show you ways in which we are fooling ourselves. Absolutely, I give you an ironclad guarantee. So this is not just looking at others and seeing who is qualified, who is not qualified. It's also looking at myself. Because we can think, oh, I have so much love for Krishna. Oh, I'm so devoted. I am not interested in anything of the material world at all. But it's not true. Krishna came in my dream. Well, that's nice of Krishna. Krishna comes in the dream, that's nice. But we don't make a shastra out of it. Don't make a shastra out of it. Or we don't think because Krishna came in my dream, therefore I am a Mahabhagavat. I mean, right now in my own personal reading, I'm in the 6th canto where Daksha is making his prayers to Vishnu. And he sees Vishnu. Okay, he sees Vishnu. And it says in the Bhagavatam, he felt bhava when he saw Vishnu. But his motive was just to be a sense enjoyer in the world. And he was very offensive to Narada. Previous life, he was offensive to Shiva. That life, he was offensive to Narada. So we need these objective symptoms. The subjective symptoms are important. If the subjective, you all understand what is subjective and what is objective? Everybody understand what is the difference? Subjective, I feel. How do you feel? I feel happy. When the sociologists are measuring the happiest countries, they just ask people, are you happy? That is subjective. Like if I say, I like blue, I don't like green, that is just subjective. My own experience. Objective is something you can measure. we usually say in psychology, something you can see with a camera or you can hear with a microphone. So if someone says, yes, I am happy, just like Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu did his austerities to become the king of heaven. The king, he wanted to be the king of the universe, he didn't get that. But he became the king of heaven. So he thought he was very happy. Right? Ishwaraham, aham bogi, sinaham. The demons, I am perfect, I am powerful, I am happy. Was Hiranyakashipu happy? Was he happy? You know, it's interesting. It describes in the Bhagavatam that he was always intoxicated on liquor. Do happy people need to take intoxicants? No. The happy people don't need to take intoxicants. Intoxicants are for unhappy people. Is that correct? If someone is taking intoxicants, especially all the time, you can understand. They're not happy. And he was also yelling at the demigods all the time without reason. Have you ever met anybody like this? They're always angry with people without cause or for some little cause. Have you met people like this? Everybody? I hope it's not you. Oh, we may know some people in our life. I have met people like this. Every little thing they become angry. Every little thing they are shouting and upset. Are these people happy? Would you say that is a happy person? And if that person says, I am happy, would you believe them? Would you believe them? If they're always shouting at everybody for everything and they are always intoxicated? No. So the person saying, I am perfect, powerful, and happy, that is subjective. How the person is behaving, that is objective. We can see it. We can hear it. He's yelling at the demigods for nothing. So we want also, subjective is important. It is not unimportant. It is not unimportant. If it was unimportant, we would not have so many Bhagavatam verses and Bhagavad Gita verses on the inner subjective experience of bhakti. So it is extremely important. And that is something, the only person who can tell that is me about myself. And the only person who can tell that about someone else is themselves. I cannot know your subjective experience. Maybe somewhat if I'm empathic, but not completely. But to be holistic, we need to have an inner subjective experience. Only I know my inner subjective experience. And an outer objective experience that can be measured. And when I'm going to look at my own advancement, I want to look at both. What is my subjective experience and what are the objective measures that somebody else can see with a camera, somebody else can record with a microphone. Now when I'm looking at other people, I can look at the objective. The subjective becomes really a problem if I'm looking at other people. Because we all know that to some extent we can hide our internal state by how we behave externally, correct? Like you were saying, actors. Actors are very expert liars. You know, generally, we try to have what we say and how we feel be the same. Lying is when I'm acting in a way that is not the same as how I feel. So the actors, that is their profession. Correct? The actor playing the murderer, you don't want them to actually feel that they are a murderer. When I used to be in the Ramayana drama, and I was playing Shurpanakha, and the director was always saying, you're not demoniac enough. So I used to, before I would go on the stage, I would recite the verses from the 16th chapter. I would recite the demon verses so I could try to feel like a demon, you know. I'd be there, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. That, you know, my enemy has been killed, I will kill my next enemy, you know, and then I'd be in those verses, and then I'd come on the stage. Yeah, the power is going off on. So I don't know how good of an actor I was. I had to really work at that. So it's very difficult when we are looking at other people. They may be acting, especially if we don't see them all the time. You know? And this happens all over the world, again, in every religion. Am I correct? Yes? It has happened in our ISKCON also, and it will not stop happening. There is no rule, there is no procedure that can prevent this. That people will have their subjective experience will be, their inner experience will be, they are materialistic, but they are projecting the behavior of a sadhu. For various reasons. Maybe they are just trying. Maybe they are actively cheating, and maybe they are just simply trying. And again, we can even fool ourselves. It's very, very easy to fool ourselves. So therefore, after hearing the subjective descriptions, the objective is described. Now, what is the importance of the subjective descriptions? Because bhakti is not just a matter of external behavior. It's not that I'm going to be a devotee just by moving my fingers on some wooden beads and making some sounds with my mouth, and waking up early in the morning and taking a bath, and think, oh, now I'm a devotee. So just having some external behavior, that's not sufficient. So therefore, both are emphasized. Both are there, and one is not more important than the other. They are both very important. Okay. So this is why he wants to know. Now, let's look for a minute at ourselves, and then we're going to look at others. So looking at ourselves, it's not that at every moment we should be judging ourselves. I remember I once asked Burjan Prabhu a question like this about myself, and he said, stop thinking about all these stages and all these symptoms, just do your service. So it's not that all the time, every day, many, many times a day, we should be evaluating ourselves. Am I a devotee? Am I not a devotee? How good am I a devotee? Am I? What stage am I on? Where am I? Am I progressing? Because then we're what? Self-centered, yes? Then we're just thinking about ourselves. We want to be thinking about Krishna. Yes? But at the same time, these things are given because sometimes we need this. Sometimes we need to, just like if you're traveling somewhere, you need to sometimes see, am I going the right way? Correct? Yes? I was visiting some devotees in Croatia on this little island called Krik. Very, very wonderful family. One of the most wonderful devotees. Actually talking about external symptoms. It's husband and wife. And when I am there, they are always talking about Shastra and Krishna. Constantly. They basically don't talk about anything else. I mean, sometimes they have to say practically, you know, did you buy the tomatoes? And is there petrol in the car or something like that? So I'd say like 85% of their conversation, it's just Krishna. And I said, how is this? They said, well, we're always either reading or hearing. They're constantly listening to classes in their house and constantly reading. And of course, I went there to work on my writing, but I didn't get much writing done because it was so enlivening to talk to them about Shastra. You know, we would sit down to lunch and then they'd say, Urmila, we have a Shastric question, and then we'd go on for 4 hours. And so I wouldn't get my writing done. But it was very ecstatic. Anyway, so they live right on the Mediterranean Sea. And so in the morning, instead of taking my bath in a shower, we would take bath in the sea, like Mahaprabhu would take bath in the sea. So it was a 5-minute walk from their house to the sea. And very clean, the water there is very clean. But when you walk there, there's many curving roads, and they're all different curving roads in different ways. And so one time walking back, I got lost. I got completely lost, and I was thinking, I don't know the name of their street. I don't know their house number. This street looks the same as this street, and I was just... Finally, I got back. I mean, obviously, I'm here. I was wondering, you know, what will happen if I never find my way back? How will they find me? It was very like a whole maze. And I thought, tomorrow morning I will pay more attention to where I'm going, because I would bring my beads with me. I wasn't bringing my phone. I was just bringing my beads. And I was just focusing on my chanting, and I wasn't paying any attention to So I thought, I need to pay some attention. You know, what are the landmarks, we call them? Yes, there's this fence over here, and this gate, and this sign. So it is important that we know something about these objective measures of bhakti, so that we can gauge, am I doing okay or not? We have to be able to tell something about ourselves. As Prabhupada's saying, you don't just get a certificate from others. I should be able to have some objective measure. Am I making progress? And this is also important because for my own Krishna consciousness, subjectively, advancement in Krishna consciousness is very paradoxical. The more you advance in Krishna consciousness, the more one becomes humble. And when you're humble, you think you haven't advanced in Krishna consciousness. It's a very strange thing. When I first started practicing Krishna consciousness, I thought I was a very, very advanced devotee. I was reading Bhagavad Gita in university, and I'm reading about the modes of nature, and I thought, oh, I'm in goodness about that, and I'm in goodness about that, and I'm in goodness about that. I mean, and it was interesting, you know, I was the only practicing devotee in my whole university. I was going to classes in a sari and tilak. It was rather a funny sari, because in those days, there were very few Indians in America, and you could not buy actual saris at all in America. So I just went to a fabric store, and I just got a piece of fabric. But I didn't know what size fabric to get. So it was too short. The sari was short, and this part was also short. Everything was... I'm very happy none of you saw me then, because you would have laughed very loudly for a very long time. But anyway, so there in my college, in my university, I was thinking, yes, I am a devotee. I was wearing tilak, I was offering my food, I was reading Krishna book, Bhagavad Gita, and in comparison to the other students, you know, I was a very spiritually elevated person. So I was thinking like that. And then when I moved in the ashram, then the devotees were very hard on me. I don't know if we still torture new people like this, but it's terrible. You know, everything I did, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. I remember I was making garlands for the deities, and I went to wash my hands in the bathroom, and then they said, now you have to change your clothes. I'm like, why? Why do I have to change my clothes? So constantly it was not fun at all. It was a very unpleasant experience. And they were telling me all the time. I remember I was going out to do book distribution, and I was talking about how I loved Krishna. And one of the other brahmacharini, she says, you don't love Krishna. Her name was Krishnamayi, this brahmacharini. Before my daughter got initiated, her Guru Maharaj showed me 4 names. And he said, I want to give her one of these 4 names, but I want to ask you first if you have any problem with these names. One of them was Krishnamayi. I said, not that one. So she was screaming at me in the Sankirtan van, you don't have any love for Krishna. And I'm thinking, then why am I here? I should just go back to my mommy and daddy, But anyway, as I've gone on chanting Hare Krishna, I've seen more and more that I don't have any love for Krishna. So this is the paradox, the irony of engagement in Krishna consciousness. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur talks about this in Madhurya Kadambini, that when you start the process of bhakti, you have this false confidence, and you are thinking, I am a very advanced devotee. And you interpret everything you say and everything you do as indicative of your extreme devotion. I am doing this because I am very devoted. I am doing this, and just see, I don't do any of these things. Just see how detached I am. And as you progress in bhakti, and I always wonder if I should tell this to people or not tell this to people, but as you progress in bhakti, you will start to see that your motives are stinky rotten. You'll start to see nothing I do is bhakti. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, actually. And you just have this feeling about yourself that I am just so fallen. Now, I should mention that that feeling is actually a kind of ecstasy. So if that feeling is depressed, oh, I'm so fallen, I'm never going to go back to Godhead, I don't even know what I'm doing here, and why even bother to chant because I'm just so fallen anyway. I'll just watch the football game because it's all hopeless anyway. So that kind of thinking is tamagun. That can also masquerade as devotion. The person thinks, I'm so humble. I hate myself so much. This is the symptom of my humility. Maya is very funny. Actually, as we become more humble, it should be more and more ecstatic. I'm so fallen, but Krishna still loves me. Wow. Krishna is amazing. As a new devotee, it's all about, I am amazing. And gradually it becomes, I am terrible. Wow, I'm really awful. And Krishna still engages me. Krishna is amazing. My guru is amazing. Wow, Jai Guru Dev, Jai Krishna. But anyway, this humility makes it difficult to gauge whether or not we're making any progress. And we have to gauge whether or not we're making any progress, because otherwise we may be on the wrong path. We don't want to get lost on the island of Krik in the middle of the Mediterranean Ocean. Because that's also possible. Prabhupada says it's a razor's edge, a little deviation, and I'm in another place. And we see this all the time. People get some little deviation, they get into some hodgepodge, subtle, new agey, weird thing. And I'm sure that the Indian flavor is a little different than the Russian flavor, but it's all the same rubbish. We get into something that looks kind of like Krishna consciousness, but it isn't really Krishna consciousness, because we get deviated from the path. So we need to have these signposts, because our subjective experience isn't sufficient. First of all, I can think that I'm much more advanced than I am, and second of all, I can think that I'm much less advanced than I am. Right? When I'm getting some mercy, or if I'm very new, I may think, yes, I'm the most Krishna conscious person in the Hare Krishna movement. And as I advance and become humble, then I might think, oh, I'm not Krishna conscious at all. So we need some external checks. What is my behavior? How do I speak? How do I behave? That's very interesting. In Manashiksha, Raghunath Das Goswami gives 4 levels of obstacles. And the first is speech. Here is mentioned speech also. Brute, how does he speak? And their improper speech is compared to a prostitute who steals the wealth of her clients. When a person goes to a prostitute, they lose their money, yeah? They lose so many things: their money, their health, their reputation, their family, maybe their job, their position. But primarily, they're going to lose their money. And what the prostitute is giving in exchange is illusory. The prostitute doesn't actually have any affection for the customer. There's not any actual exchange of love going on here at all. We were talking yesterday at Mala Mahaprabhu's program about the 9 different kinds of relationships. Krishna talks about the merchant relationship, where he says there's no dharma, there's no friendship, there's no prema, there's no happiness. So when I was first studying and teaching Manashiksha, I started to become more and more aware: how do I speak? What am I talking about? This is difficult, but this is a measure. What am I talking about? Am I talking about Krishna? Am I talking about Prabhupada? Am I talking about the mission? Or am I telling just my own stories? And in my own stories, am I always the victim? This person hurt me, this person cheated me, this person... Or am I just criticizing others? This person is a cheater, this person is a rascal, this person is this person is that. A year ago, I had a conversation with one devotee who was very upset at someone else's fall down. And she was meditating 24 hours a day on this other devotee's fall down. And I said, you really be good if you stopped thinking about this and talking about it every moment you are awake. She said, Urmila, are you saying that this devotee is okay? I said, no. Who cares what this other person did? Their fall down, their not fall down. That's their problem. What about you? I said, how are you going to go back to Godhead if you're meditating on this person instead of Krishna? So to pay attention, what am I talking about? Not only what am I talking about, but what is the mood in which I'm talking? And many times I have caught myself speaking about things that are really not helpful to my Krishna consciousness or anyone else's. Just Gramya Kata. And sometimes Prabhupada puts this Gramya Kata and this Prajalpa in the category of gambling. And whenever I hear that from Prabhupada, I think, oh, now I am a gambler. Just to speak rubbish. Did you know what this person did? And that was so bad, and that person's not really a devotee. And to speak honestly, if we're going to be honest, we have people in our movement, this is their career. I'm sure we have all met people like this. Their career is simply to tell you everything that everybody else is doing wrong. This will be a many lifetime career, because in the material world, many people will be doing many things wrong. So this will keep you busy for a very long time. Or, talking about what wrong has been done to me. This bad thing was 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 done to me. Or people talking about all the wonderful things they have done. So also in teaching Manashiksha, there is this section about bathing in donkey urine we mentioned the other day. And one of them is to think that your advancement is based on what you've done. I've distributed so many books, I've chanted so many rounds, I've waved so many sticks of incense at the deities, I've given so much money, therefore I'm a devotee. Actually, Jiva Goswami mentions this in, I think, the Bhakti Sandarbha as a symptom of inattentive chanting. That when you chant inattentively, then you measure your advancement by these kind of things, these numbers. I mean, Prabhupada wanted us to have competition for who was selling the most books, But if I think because I have sold the most books, therefore I'm an advanced devotee. Yes? So I found that after I would teach this part of Manashiksha, sometimes, not always, but sometimes, people would come up to me and they were disturbed. And they would say, but Urmila, I have done this and I have done this and I have done this and I had several times, maybe 5 times. I had people come up to me and trying to prove to me that they were an advanced devotee because of their austerities or because of their external behavior. It was quite interesting. Yes? So what are we looking at here? What do we talk about? Do we talk about what we've done? I remember this one woman, she was going on and on. She said, I gave my house. Whenever the sannyasis come, they stay in my house, I stay in the ashram, and I am cooking in the kitchen for so many years, 12 hours a day. And she was listing all of her tapasya. What was she doing? She was glorifying herself, you understand? Yes? Or somebody talking about how bad they are. Oh, I'm so fallen, I'm so terrible, I'm so this, I'm so that, I'm so that. So we can pay attention. What am I talking about? What do I talk about? Again, practical. We have to take care of some practical things. You may have to say, did you bring the roses and where is the ghee? Or if you have a job or a business, I'm sure Bhaktivinoda was talking about the court cases in his court. That was his job. I'm sure Srila Prabhupada, as a pharmacist, was saying, did you bring this herb? Did you bring this medicine? And where are the boxes? And what are the bills? And even Prabhupada running ISKCON, he would talk about such things. Where is the bill from, Dainipan for our publishing Back to Godheads? And, this was, obviously that has to be there. But especially if our talk is criticizing others, criticizing ourselves, praising ourselves, something about, how I've been hurt, these sort of talk is indicative that we're not really making much progress. That our wealth of bhakti is being stolen away. So it's not just, oh, I love Krishna, but you make an effort to talk about Krishna, talk about things that will enliven others. Yes? And we'll get to this again when we talk about the 6 loving exchanges, which we'll talk about very soon. But at least in gathering my own advancement, I look, what do I say? Then what else do we see here? Dharma. What do I understand as my duties? What do I understand as my responsibilities? Oh, this is also very tricky. This is also a razor's edge. Because it is very easy to have dharma according to upadhis and think that that makes me Krishna conscious. And we don't want the niyamagraha or niyamagraha. So we don't want to say, well, now that I'm Krishna conscious, I have no material duties. Leave my husband, leave my wife, leave my children. No more material duties. Sarvadharman prachaja now, okay. And nor do we want to say, because I am Krishna conscious, I am a very good wife. I am a very good husband. I am a very good son. I am a very good daughter. This is my duty. Both are wrong. And it's very subtle. It's very, very subtle. Because you can renounce your family for Krishna, and you can take good care of your family for Krishna. Yes? You can have no job in the world, you just simply preach Bhagavatam, and do that for Krishna, and you can be a pharmacist for Krishna. So what is the dharma by which we can gauge, am I really making advancement? So the word dharma, Prabhupada explains, means the essence of something. Like the essence of sugar is sweet, the essence of salt is to be salty. We just had Christmas yesterday. Jesus talked about this. He said, you are the salt of the world. He said to his disciples, you are the salt of the world. But if the salt loses its salty quality, what is its use? So dharma means, what do I do according to who I am? This dharma is, how do I identify myself? Who am I? So if I identify myself according to my upadhis, I am the daughter or the son of some so-and-so persons. I am the wife of so-and-so. I am the husband of so-and-so. I am the parents of so-and-so. I have this job. I have that job. And then I make my dharma according to that upadhi, then I am not advancing in bhakti at all. Then I am just some pious person of the world. And shrama eva hi kevalam. It's useless. What I'm doing is useless. Ashradayahutam datam tapat tapam chamchayat asari chuchite parta nachatad prajano iha. There's nothing factual in it. I mean, we want ordinary people in the world to be good sons, good daughters, good husbands, good wives. When Krishna and Balaram say to Vasudeva and Devaki, if someone has a chaste wife or mother and father and they don't take care, this is very sinful. So we want to do that, but not from the position of upadhi, from the position of Jivara Swarupaya Krishnara Nityadasha. I am Krishna's servant, and I am taking care of these people to please Krishna, not because it is my material duty. Now, how does one know? Because you say, oh, Urmila, you just talked about objective measures, but that's a subjective measure. So what is the objective measure? The objective measure is how we respond when the people we are serving in this world are not happy with our service. Because in this world, nobody will be completely happy with our service all the time. If you find somebody like that, please introduce me. I would like to meet them. But it just doesn't happen. This is a point Srila Prabhupada makes over and over and over. You can be the best wife in the world. You can get the award. You can get a certificate from Lord Brahma that you are the best wife in the world, and sometimes your husband will not be pleased with you. You can be the best husband in the world, and Lord Brahma can give you a certificate, and sometimes your wife will not be pleased with you. You can be the best son, the best daughter, sometimes your parents will not be pleased with you. You can be the best parent, and sometimes your children will not be pleased with you. Am I correct? So how do we respond when the person we are serving is not pleased with us? If I'm thinking, now this is subtle, but it's very important. So please try to be attentive. If I'm thinking, I am serving my husband because I am a wife, and it is my dharma to be a wife, and therefore I want to be a good wife. When my husband is not pleased, and will he be not pleased sometimes? Definitely. Then my identity as being a good wife becomes challenged. Because I'm dependent for that identity, not only on my own idea, but also his opinion. And not only husband, what about mother-in-law, father-in-law? Their opinion also. Will the mother-in-law, father-in-law always think you are a good wife? Definitely not. Definitely not. I know, I am a mother-in-law, so I will tell you. Definitely not. I am a mother-in-law and I am a grandmother-in-law. Hare Krishna. So if your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, they're saying, what is this? You're not keeping this clean? Yeah. And then your whole concept of being a good wife, it is shaken. Does everybody follow this? I'm giving an example of wife, but this is true for anything. I'm a good son, whatever. Good devotee, good member of ISKCON, good disciple. Yes, we can see now the eclipse has started. It's getting dark. 9:30 is the maximum. Yeah, that is the maximum, 10 minutes. Huh? The birds, yeah. They're disturbed. Yeah. Well, they think it's becoming nighttime, and so they're disturbed. Yeah. They're saying, time to go to bed, time to go to bed, time to go to bed. So if I am working on the platform of Upadi, then when my mother, mother-in-law, husband, son, whatever, is upset with me, my identity becomes shaken. Oh, I'm not a good son, I'm not a good wife. And then I become angry at that person. Because I'm thinking, wait a minute. I worked so hard, I sacrificed so much, I wanted to do this, but I did this other thing for you. I put in, 15 hours to do this thing for you. Yeah? A few months ago, someone asked me to do some service, and I spent months. It was very difficult. I had to make so many phone calls, and it was extremely difficult. And it was a failure. It didn't work. And so the devotee who asked me to do the service said to me, "You're useless." And so my mind was going, who are you? So if we respond like this means we're working on the platform of Upadi. You understand? But if I'm thinking I'm doing this for Krishna, for Guru, it doesn't matter if it's a success or failure. It doesn't matter if other people praise me or blame me, or it just doesn't matter. I remain steady. I remain peaceful. So this is a gauge with Dharma. Who am I? How do I identify myself? So we've looked at speech, we've looked at Dharma. Having what nature? So here we could look at the 26 qualities of a devotee. There are other examples, but these 26 qualities. Am I mild? Do I not eat more than required? Am I poetic? Am I kind to all living entities? And Prabhupada talks with these 26 qualities of a devotee, that these are also ways by which we gauge our progress. Then acharati, how do we behave? So of course here we're looking at our sadhana. In fact, this is very practical. Am I chanting? Am I reading? Am I waking up early? Am I worshiping the deity? Am I offering my food? Am I doing these things or not doing these things? Am I clean? And Uttama Prabhu was telling us how one temple where he became the GBC, the temple president, he went to visit the temple president's home and everything was so dirty, it was unbearable. Right? Somebody may be a pujari and you open the door to their car and bugs come out. Right? You go in their house and you smell, it smells like it hasn't been cleaned for, 20 years. So sometimes you see that somebody makes some show of being very paka, and they're taking care of the deities and they're Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And you go into their room, you go into their house, and you're like, no, it's not a forest. Forest is pretty. Not forest. More like the open sewer or something. It's terrible. So what is our behavior? How do I behave? What is my activities? Prabhupada said we should be revolutionary clean. What is the standard of the kitchen? Is the kitchen very clean? What is the standard of the toilet room? I was in, I won't say where I was. I was someplace, we will not say where. So I was supposed to be teaching the last 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. And I looked at the room, and the room was so dirty. And then there was a toilet room, and you couldn't even go in there. I mean, you would just, You know? And I said to the organizers, I said, I cannot teach about the 3 modes of material nature in this room. So, behavior. You know, we have this acharati. What is my achar? How do I behave? This doesn't mean we have to behave perfectly 24 hours a day, every minute. That is not possible. But at least I should generally have good behavior. And again, we should be moving up. It's not that today I have to be perfect or I have to pretend that I'm perfect. Please don't pretend you're perfect. That doesn't work very well. But at least we should see, how am I moving up? How am I progressing? And we look at these external and the internal, both. Not that you just look at how do you talk and what's your dharma and how do you behave, but also, am I feeling devotion? Am I having an experience of Krishna? Am I getting detached in my heart from material things? Am I feeling peace? So subjective and objective. So we've just talked for some length about ourselves. All right, now let's look at others. So this becomes a lot more tricky using objective measures with others. Because as we mentioned, it's very possible for people to fool us. If we that's why it said before accepting a guru, one should examine for a year. Because it's easy to be fooled in a day or a week by someone's behavior. And the person, again, they may not be actually a cheater, they may be fooling themselves. But we tell a devotee both on what we can know about their subjective experience and these other things. How do they speak? How do they behave? How do they identify themselves? And especially, how do they speak? Prabhupada would say, particularly, that we can tell how they speak. But what is their life in general? You know, Prabhupada would say it's not that you talk about Radha and Krishna and then you go smoke a cigarette. You know, that immediately we can tell, okay, this person is not on a very high level. Of course, we give Krishna book to people who smoke cigarettes. We don't say if you're smoking cigarettes, you cannot read the Krishna book. But if somebody is saying, oh, I love Krishna and Radharani, and then, you know, they are drinking alcohol and smoking cigarettes, we can understand that they're not really on a very high level of devotion. So we need to look at these things, not to criticize and be offensive. Then we are fallen. But so we can choose our association. Now, before we go into the 6 loving exchanges, we want to look a little bit about these stages of bhakti. And this will be much more the next few days, looking at the Uttama Adhikari, the Majjhima Adhikari, and the Kanistha Adhikari. Because we're going to have exchanges with these different people a little differently, depending on who we are and who they are. This is also why we need to know who we are and who they are. So I want to make sure that I am actually in bhakti and I'm actually advancing. But also when I am choosing association, the Shastras are saying how I should act with people who are higher, how I should act with people who are the same, and how I should act with people who are lower than me. So this is also why I have to know something about me. You follow? I have to know something about me so I can make sure I'm staying on the right path. I can make sure I'm progressing. But also as a guide to who I'm associating with and how. Just like, problem with giving a very long class. Just like if I'm going to sign up for courses in something, I need to know what is my level so I can sign up for the appropriate course. So many years ago, because Prabhupada said, if you don't teach Sanskrit, it's not a Gurukula. So we always had Sanskrit in our school, but at one point I had no Sanskrit teacher. So I thought, we must teach Sanskrit, but I have no Sanskrit teacher. So I thought, I guess I have to teach Sanskrit. So that meant I had to learn Sanskrit. I never got very far. But so I was taking these courses. So then I went to an immersion camp in spoken Sanskrit. They said, we have 3 levels. One is a beginner. This is for people who know nothing. They don't even know the Devanagari, nothing. Then the middle level is for people who know an Indian language but no Sanskrit. And the advanced level is for people who already can write and speak in Sanskrit. So I thought, well, I don't belong in any of those. So I thought, let me go to the middle level because I don't know an Indian language, but I know some Sanskrit. Well, the problem was, in that level, everyone except one person, they were born and raised in India, and they had studied Sanskrit in school. So they knew an Indian language, and they also knew as much Sanskrit as I knew. So it was a little difficult. But my point is that I had to know, what do I know? To choose, I go in this group, this group, this group. I had to know something of myself. Yes? So here we're going to come to a big problem. Actually, we're going to come to 2 big problems. We'll look at each one of them individually. So the first problem is that there's many different descriptions of stages of advancement. You can think of stages of advancement. If you're going to be driving from here to Tirupati, you can be a little bit of the way there, halfway there, or almost there. Yes? But that's very clear. You're here or you're not here. But when it comes to making advancement in bhakti, because we're persons and we're looking for a personal relationship with a personal God, how we're advancing is nuanced. It's not just you're here, you're here, you're here, you're here, you're here. So there's many different descriptions of the stages of bhakti. And if this is the only point you get from today's very long class, the different stages describe different things. They're not all looking at the same thing. Like some of you are young, some of you are children. How old are you? 11. So you're still a child. And sometime in the next few years, you're going to become an adult. Thank you. So we can say there's many categories of being an adult. So you become an adult physically. You become an adult intellectually. You become an adult socially, emotionally. You also become an adult in the skills that you know. At least in my country, the main adult skill you get is driving. You learn how to drive a car. Your driver's license is a big adult skill. But to learn how to keep a bank account, yeah, that is an adult skill. So many. To know how to cook, to know how to drive. So we can become an adult in many of these different ways. Everybody clear on this? Yes? And so, could somebody be intellectually an adult, but physically a child? Yes, it happens sometimes. I was seeing the news the other day, some 9-year-old child was going to college. So that is someone who is physically a child, but intellectually an adult. Can somebody be physically an adult and emotionally a child? Yes? Sometimes people are 50 and they are still like a 2-month-old baby emotionally. They think the whole world is about them. And you could be 25 and have no adult skills. Maybe you stay at mommy and daddy's house and they do everything for you and you don't know how to do anything. Maybe mommy and daddy are paying all your bills and driving you everywhere. And does this make sense to everybody? So you might be an adult socially, you might be an adult physically, you might be an adult intellectually, but you have no adult skills. Some people have adult skills when they're 12. Yeah? So it's looking at different things. Can I use the board? Is that all right? Will the microphone go there? The board will come to me. And the cord will also, look at this. My magic cord, it keeps coming and coming. Okay, and we have an eraser, very good. Yesterday we just had a piece of paper in the other room. And now we're much more sophisticated. Oh, look at that, he's so efficient. Very easy, very nice. That means you maintain your board nicely. Some places where I go, even after they erased it, it's like there's ghosts on the board. All right. You're going to lock it. Excellent. Okay. So let's look at different descriptions. I did this yesterday, so if you were at that seminar, then this will be a review. But we're going to do more today than we did yesterday. So it won't be completely a review. So what does kanista literally mean? Beginner, but literal, not steady. Unsteady, yeah. Like a beginning walking child. Think of like a little child who's just learning to walk. They walk like this, right? We call them a toddler because they have this funny walk and they fall over very easily. Yes? Unsteady. Kanista. Okay? Then the next is called in Sanskrit what? And what does Majjhima mean literally? Middle. We could call it an intermediate. And then the next in Sanskrit is Uttama. What does that literally mean? Higher, but what is literal? Above ignorance, literally. It's so funny that the color of the sky when there's an eclipse, it's different. Isn't it different? It's kind of like spooky. Today, even though it's cloudy though, this is not a cloud color. Yeah, it's right now it's at the maximum. So this we could say advanced, highest. Okay. So in this purport, right, the editors they chose to reference what? Do you remember in this purport? Upadeshamrita, the nectar devotion. Yes, sorry, nectar of instruction, thank you. You are the checker priest. In every yajna, this is a yajna also, in every yajna you have to have checker priests, yes? Okay, where else do we have these descriptions given? One is very easy because it's what we're reading. Chaitanya Charitamrita is referencing others. Well, you could say there is one in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. There is one. And you're going to have to help me with that. There is one. But you're going to have to help me with that. I'm not sure if I'm going to remember that totally. Bhagavad Gita, Not with these three categories. There are in Bhagavad Gita, but other categories. We'll get to that. We'll get to things that aren't these. Nectar devotion, the places where we find these. Nectar devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Yeah, but Prabhupada's purports are almost always referencing. Come on, folks, this is so easy, you're not seeing it. Yes, the Bhagavatam 11th canto, the one what we're reading today. Okay, and then there's also in Sri Manashiksha, verse 1. Commentary by Bhakti Vinod. Did I just disappear? I'm sacrificing myself. I just merged into the Brahman here, okay? So can anybody help me fill out these boxes? That I'm going to need the most help with. Who's the Vaishnav? He was asked 3 times. Do you remember what the 3 different answers were? But there was also Asat Sangha Tyaga. Which one was that? That was the middle? And the highest was inspires others? Thank you. I don't usually get that one. So that was very good. Who can help me fill out some other boxes? Okay, so we have unsteady faith. Unsteady faith in what? And Jyotir, don't answer all the questions. I know how you feel when the teacher says that. I know exactly how you feel when I say don't answer all the questions. And I'm like, but I know all the answers. Why can't I give them? I do know how you feel. And whenever I tell you don't answer all the questions, I feel so guilty because I don't like it when the teacher does that to me. And here I'm doing to you what I don't like being done to me. I'm like, but I know the answer. Why can't I give it? What happens is nobody else thinks because they just think, oh, Jyoti knows, she knows. Why should I even think? And then nobody is engaged. Especially in a long class, if you don't engage people, they're gone. Okay? So you please help me here, all right? You can be helped. Just answer like 1/10 of the questions, all right? Thank you. I know you know. Can anyone else help me fill out some of these boxes? Unsteady faith in what? In what? Yes. In Shastra. So can be convinced by others. Anybody else help me with any other box? That doesn't mean you have to go away. Now I've offended you, and then Krishna will be very, very... Krishna will be angry with me now. Can anyone else help me fill out some more boxes? I'm looking not at the first verse of Nectar of Instruction, but I'm looking at the verse that's being referred to in this purport, which is the 5th verse, where there's actually 3 levels given. Because that's an overall general description, Vachovegam, Manasukrodavegam. But there's also, Rupa Goswami is giving levels. in the 5th. It's referred to in this purport today. Any of these boxes. Yes? Excellent. So firm faith, but may not be able to convince. They may be able to convince some people, but not everybody. Any more boxes that you can help me with? Expert in convincing others. And this is again in Shastra. Okay, can anybody help me with any other boxes? The 11th canto verses that we're coming to the next 3 days, they're the most commonly used criteria. It's the criteria from the 11th canto that you find all over Prabhupada's purports and lectures and the purports of our acharyas. This is when you think of the Kanista, Majjhima, and Uttama, this is probably the description that you're going to go to. So anybody have any idea what this is? Chanting, no, that's going to be here. Faith is here. That's another one. And hold on, because we're going to get to that one after we erase this board. Because there are... Yes. God only in the temple. Intermediate has 4. Love for God, and the word used is prema. And the others? Avoiding atheists. I spell that right? E-I. Right, and the other 2? Huh? Well, friendly to the devotees. And with the innocent, what? Compassion. Okay, we still have some empty boxes. That's 11th canto. Yes, yes. No propensity to criticize, and what else? There's one more quality. Undeviated bhakti. Continuous, yes. And this one? That's going to be the next board when we erase this. Yes, Diksha and? Yes, Diksha and Archana. Okay, Manasiksha. So in Manasiksha, the beginner, they worship God by following moral principles, like varnashram. And the intermediate, they have devotion to God, but it may not be Krishna. And this is in any tradition, in any bona fide tradition. And this is devotion to Raj Kishore, devotion to Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, Krishna in Vrindavan. So remember, we were talking about becoming an adult in different ways. So this is becoming an advanced devotee in different things. So like this, let's take the easiest one first. What's this about? Nectar devotion, what's that about? It's about qualification for Vaidhi, but what's it measuring? The degrees of what? Knowledge and faith in Shastra. You'd have to have knowledge of Shastra to have faith in it, but knowledge and faith in Shastra. Okay? What's the 11th canto that we're studying now? What's that measuring? Interaction with others. Yes, it's about relationships. What's nectar of instruction measuring? Sadhana. Yes, what's your commitment to the process? Huh? This is interesting, because I don't usually think about this one. We'll get to this last, because I don't think about it. You'll have to help me with this one. Manashiksha is measuring how we understand God, how we define God. Do we define God as just the creator and we have to follow rules? Or do we define God as, Bhagavan or Vishnu or maybe Jesus or Allah? Or do we define God as the son of Nanda Maharaj? What about this one? This is kind of interesting. Now, what is this measuring? The one that Mahaprabhu gives? Purity of chanting, maybe, yeah. But I think there's also some commitment to process in there. It's sort of both of those. All right, let's look at some other ways of measuring advancement. Oh, I should have said, are all these the same? Are all these the same? No, they're different, right? Could I worship Krishna as Nanda Maharaj, but I haven't yet taken Diksha? Right? Correct? Maybe I think God is just following moral principles, but I have firm faith in Shastra. Is that possible? Is that possible? Yes. I could be Kanista here, and I could be Uttam over here. Do you understand? Right? I could have just taken... Right? I could have just taken Harinam, but I could have love for God and be friendly to the devotees. I could think God is only in my temple, He's not in any other temple, only in my religion, and I could have Diksha and be doing Archana. Yes? So I could be Kanista in one way, Majjhima in another way. I could be Uttam in some way, and I could be Majjhima in another way. Does everybody see this? Do you see this? No? You don't see this. Okay, let's say that I know the Shastra, I'm very expert in Shastra, I could convince anyone, I have firm faith in the Shastra, but I think religion is just about Varnashram. Is that possible? Have you met people like that? I have met people like this. I know them personally. I could even tell you their names. So that means at this level, they're Kanista, and at this level, they're Uttama. Okay?
But the faith and bhakti in the Shastra
but I could still interpret it as varnashram. They could. Exactly the same as why could you be physically an adult and emotionally a child? Or intellectually an adult and physically a child? It's entirely possible. And I asked this question yesterday, I'll ask it again now. So I think in bhakti, some things for each of us are very easy. Yes, I have some things in Krishna consciousness that are very easy. I never struggled with them even one day. Like being vegetarian, I never struggled. The devotee said, be vegetarian. I said, okay. Then from that day I was vegetarian. No struggle, no mental struggle, no practical struggle, nothing. Right? Or they said, don't gamble. I said, I never gambled, it's not a problem. Or for me, waking up early. I woke up early since I was 2 years old. It's nothing. For me, it's absolutely nothing. Even if I don't set an alarm, I wake up early. So do you think, is there something in bhakti that for you is just very easy? You don't even have to think about it, you just do. Who has something in bhakti that is very, very easy? Nothing? Do you have to struggle to be a vegetarian? Eat prasadam. Do you have to struggle to eat prasadam? Okay. Who has something that's very easy? No struggle. Okay. Then we have some things that maybe we do them, but they're struggle. We do them, but we're like, I have to do that. Okay. All right, I got to do that. But we do it, and we do it okay, but we struggle. Who has something like that? Okay? And then we might have something that we have tried and 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 tried. And we sometimes do it, and we sometimes fail, and it's so difficult. And then we think, yes, I've done that. And then we fall on our face. Who has something like that? Okay, now I will guarantee you that if we gave everybody a piece of paper, we won't do this, don't worry. But if we gave everyone a piece of paper and you wrote down, this is my easy thing, this is my medium thing, this is my thing, and we compared, they would be different for different people. Like I have one god sister, Nanda. She came to the temple and she said, chanting japa, I like this. I can do this. And within 2-3 weeks, she was chanting 40 rounds. And she has kept that up for like 50 years. She said, I could chant more, but I know I'm supposed to do some practical service, so I... And other people, you know, even 1 round, 2 rounds, it's like, I chanted 2 rounds today, Prabhu. You know, and I know people, deity worship is their life, and their altar is beautiful, and they love taking care of the deity. They're always meditating on the deities. And I know one devotee, he's like, do I have to worship the deities? I don't really like worshiping the deities. He's a nice devotee, but he says, I don't know. Do I have to go to the deity worship? So like that, right? Some devotees, they only eat prasadam, cooked by devotees, properly offered. Other people, they are buying so many things from the shops all the time. You go to their house, you look in their trash can, you're like, oh my God, Krishna. So it's the same with this, that we can be a beginner in one area and a more intermediate devotee in another area. And it's very important to remember this. These are measuring different things. Eventually, we should become an advanced devotee in everything, but that's probably not going to happen immediately like that. Also, we are bringing stuff in probably from other lifetimes. So some of us in other lifetimes, we were already very advanced in something. Is this our practical experience? And we have to be very, very careful that what I am very advanced in, that I don't judge somebody who is struggling with that thing, because I'm struggling with something else. Yes. We should be very, very careful that we don't, if someone is very advanced in something I'm struggling with, that doesn't mean, oh, they're Mahabhagavat devotee. And if somebody is struggling with something that I am advanced in, oh, they are just rascal. You understand? And some of this may be our culture and our upbringing, and like you were saying, vegetarian has nothing to do with bhakti. But like we see some people, I don't know how to say this politely in South India, but we see some people who have higher moral standards than others. Yeah? Some of that may be your culture. Like in Indonesia, very few divorces among the devotees. Very rare. Because that is the culture. In Sweden, it's common. In Indonesia, it's rare. But that may not be bhakti. It's the culture. It's the atmosphere. And that also we have to understand. A person is affected to some extent still as they're progressing. All right, let's look at some other. I'm not as expert as you, huh? He was like, woo, okay, well, I'm going to try to follow the Acharya here. Okay, so someone said about Shraddha to Prema. And what do we go? From Shraddha to? What's the next one? Sadhu Sangha? What else? What's the next one? Next. 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 Now you see that this one is a little different from the Kanistha, Madhyama, and Uttama we were looking at. This is much more holistic. The other Kanistha, Madhyama, and Uttama we were looking at, each of them were looking at a different area. And this is much, much more holistic. But even this, I mean, Anartha Nivritti is really going on from here to here. It's not really a distinct stage in one sense, although at this point a person is really focusing on it. And then Nishtha is about what? Steadiness in? Okay, steadiness in bhakti in three areas. Well, body, mind, and speech, which very much relates to today's verse. And then also, interesting, good qualities. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says you can be nistha in good qualities, but not be nistha in bhakti. Interesting. And he also says usually you're first nistha in body, then in speech, then in mind, but can be in another order. So a person may be nishtha in mind, but not in speech and body. They can be fixed in their mind in Krishna, but their speech and activities are not fixed in Krishna. So eventually you have to become nistha in all of them, but you can become nistha, sometimes the order that you become nistha depends. Then what about ruchi? Okay, but there's levels of ruchi. Huh? Well, it's about having taste in everything, not just chanting. But excellent, yes. Expert and doesn't matter. So if you're getting ruchi when everything's expert, that means you're only experiencing ruchi when the prasadam was cooked nicely, when the person singing has a nice voice, when the deities are dressed nicely, someone gives class nicely, then you feel ruchi. But if that's not there, you don't. And I knew one devotee who was definitely at this stage. He is still a sannyasi, and he was in charge of a temple. And it took me years to understand that that was the situation. At first I just thought, this is very strange. If somebody was not playing an instrument correctly, he would walk and stop them. He couldn't tolerate if anybody was not expert in something. And many years later, he actually wrote about how he could only get a taste when everything was expert, and then he became GBC in a country where nothing was expert. Nobody could sing, nobody could play instruments, they didn't know how to cook, and he learned how to find a taste when things were not expert, right? Okay, now even this one, you'll find, especially if you read Madhurya Kadambini, that each of these has many different categories under it. And even if someone is just at sadhu sangha, do they sometimes experience ruchi? Of course. If we didn't experience any ruchi in the beginning, why would we stay? In fact, Rupa Goswami says the qualification for taking up bhakti is taste. Prabhupada says we have some prema even in the very beginning, but it's just a little. It's a little bit of prema. So we may have some glimpse. Also, can you get reflections and shadows of bhava? You can get reflected bhava and shadow bhava if you're around somebody who has bhava. And Prabhupada says that can very quickly turn into real bhava. I remember Bhanu Swami saying, you can skip these stages. Some of these stages you can, just like sometimes in school you skip a grade, you get a double promotion, yeah. I see Rahu is starting to go away. So these are not absolute boxes. These are not absolute boxes. Yes? It's not like, okay, I'm just in anartha nivritti. Sometimes you may experience ruchi. Sometimes you may experience shadow bhava. Sometimes you're just at anushraddha again for an hour. Yeah? Understand? Yeah. So it's a general. Where are you generally? Like if you meet someone that just says, yeah, I believe there's a God, but I come to the temple on Janmashtami, they're here. Most religious people in the world are here. Do you believe in God? Yes. Do you believe there's a process to go to God? Yes. Do you do anything about it? No. I go to the temple on Janmashtami and Diwali, I go to church on Christmas. Yes. Yes, it's not developed Shraddha. But like there's been polls in America that 90% of people believe in God. But most of that's here. Because how do we define God? Well, that we looked at in Manashiksha. How do you define God? And then as soon as you start doing sadhu sangha is when your life starts changing. This is because here you're starting to have some asat sangha tyaga is going on here too. Sadhu sangha and asat sangha tyaga. Okay, then someone talked about chanting. We also have stages of chanting, right? What are the 3 stages of chanting? Offensive, clearing, and pure. And again, it's not that you're just on the offensive stage all the time. That would be very sad. But even if our chanting is mostly offensive, sometimes we may get a little glimpse of a clearing stage, yes? Yes? And there's also in the 11th canto, in chapter 17, I think it is, Krishna gives a progression of chanting where he said it's like rubbing sticks to make a fire, then heat, then a spark, then adding ghee, and then a fire. So that's a metaphorical path but this is also a path that Krishna gives specifically about sound, about transcendental sound. So this would be, you know, it's hard work, it's an austerity, I'm just getting a lot of smoke, right? This is, I start feeling some effect of the chanting, I start feeling some relationship with Krishna. Here it's, I get some idea of my rasa with Krishna, but it may be very brief. This is, I nourish that, and this is fire. It's actually blazing. We also look at, and this is a little controversial with some other parts of the Gaudiya Sampradaya, but we also, Prabhupada talks about Vaidhi Bhakti and Rag Bhakti. And what's the line, where does that usually happen according to Srila Prabhupada? That we switch from Vaidhi to Rag. Does anyone know? No, not, it can't be at Bhava. Because, it can't be at Bhava because it's Rag Sadhana. So there's Vaidhi sadhana and Rag sadhana, and here sadhana's over. So Prabhupada usually talks about it happening here, at the end of Anartha Nivritti. Of course, again, everybody's different. For some people, it might not happen to Ruchi or Sakti. It can also be previous life. Yeah, but if somebody has a previous lifetime, they may be in Rag Bhakti almost immediately, or they may be at the pure chanting almost immediately. So that does sometimes happen. It definitely sometimes happens. Really? Anyway, that's generally the line, but again, it can happen at other places. It's an individual. But this is usually what Prabhupada says at the end of after one has gone through a lot of anartha nivritti. All right, so why are we looking at these? Because, and we're going to be looking at these especially the next 3 days, is because if I'm also told that I should associate with people differently depending if they're higher, the same, or lower than me. So we spent the first part of the class, actually we spent the first part of the class talking about subjective and objective. Yes? It can happen at any time, but generally it happens then. And the reason it generally happens then is because of Mahaprabhu's statement, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. So, the beginning of Rag Bhakti is understanding what is my relationship with Krishna. It's a change in identity. It's a change in identity, and that can't happen as long as I'm covered with my old identity. But no, it can happen at any time. You can't, that's what I'm saying generally. I mean, Prabhupada says generally, but yes, it can happen before that or after that. That is entirely possible. Uh-huh. Mm. Mm. Yeah, well, there's also, I'm glad you brought up this point. I mean, I have some other things I want to talk about. I don't know if we'll get to them today or not, which is fine. We can also talk about these things tomorrow with the Uttam Bhakta. Maybe we'll talk about this mostly tomorrow because tomorrow's focus is on the Uttam Bhakta. So we'll just say briefly that there are statements in Shastra about, first of all, there are statements about Uttam Bhaktas falling down. It's in Nectar of Instruction, Purport, Text 5, where Prabhupada talks about how a Paramahamsa can fall down. Also, Rupa Goswami talks about how offenses can degrade your bhav. We have Bharat Maharaj, who fell down from bhav. We have Bilva Mangala Thakur, who fell down from bhav. So it's not that we ever become robots. Okay, if we want to look at the symptoms of bhava, why don't we do that? Because we're looking at symptoms. Did you have a question? Yes. Yeah, that's true, but sometimes it's pretty bad. Sometimes it's pretty bad. I mean, I know of some instances where it was pretty bad, even philosophically. It's quite interesting. You know, in Manashiksha, there's a discussion of the 4 types of anartas, of speech, of body, of mind, and of heart. And the last one of the heart is the desire for prestige based on being a devotee. Yeah, which Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur talks about in Madhurya Kanambani as far as enjoying the results of the material results of bhakti. You know, the material results of bhakti is you get some recognition and some respect because you have advanced in bhakti, and you've genuinely advanced in bhakti. It's a genuine thing, you know, that you are thinking of Krishna, your mind is absorbed in thinking of Krishna, you're not doing sinful activities, your speech is paka, and you get acknowledged for this. And if you want to enjoy that, then that's compared to an unchaste woman who wants to eat a dead dog. That this fame, this pratishtha, is like a dead dog, and the desire to eat it is like an unchaste wild woman. So, just one second, maybe this will answer you. Bhaktivinoda says in his commentary that if you don't root out this pratishtha, you can fall back to the other things. You can fall down to the donkey urine, the thieves, and the prostitute as metaphors. And I practically saw this happen. There's a particular person I'm thinking about who, I mean, this devotee was so effulgent, literally effulgent. I remember watching him at a Rath Yatra crossing the street, and even the non-devotees around me said, "Who is that man who is glowing?" I don't want to say too much because I don't want to reveal who this person was, someone I know. But I think there was not a question that this person had actually advanced in bhakti. And they had a position in ISKCON as a guru. And they were living like a king. A lot of opulence. I mean, really a lot. And not only did the person fall just from their vows, but also started preaching differently philosophy. I mean, started making a compromise with sense gratification, particularly something which you can think of what it probably was, and if you think of what it was, you're probably correct. So I saw that. I saw this person who, I would say unquestionably, someone who was very devoted to Prabhupada, to Krishna, very advanced. And because of enjoying pratishtha, as Prabhupada would say, shamelessly enjoying pratishtha. I mean, really, it was very extreme. Again, I don't want to give too many examples because this is being recorded, and we had a political situation in ISKCON at that particular time in history where it was not very easy for anyone to help that person. The political situation was such that if anybody had said anything, they would have been branded as a heretic. It wouldn't have worked. But there were, you know, you could see, if you look at it, you could see the symptoms of this enjoying of pratishtha was very strong. And he eventually propagated a philosophy glorifying sense gratification, we'll say. You can try to understand what I mean. Yes, without my saying, I don't want to say. So we saw this very directly. And I mean, you're saying, why don't they say? I'm seeing a situation right now. with somebody that I know quite well. That I'm seeing something very similar with somebody where I can see the symptoms that this person is really getting into pratishta. And I have tried to say something. It's a friend, and I've just tried to say to this person, my dear so-and-so, what about, and I even was at a meeting that with devotees and non-devotees, and some of the non-devotees even said to this person, but it wasn't effective. So it's not always so easy to tell somebody else when they're having a problem. Now, when somebody comes to a high level and falls, my understanding is they don't exactly lose that high level, because Krishna says that bhakti is never lost. I see it, you just kind of misplace it. It's like when you've lost your password. You know, you just, yes, I have an account, but I don't remember my password. I don't know where it is. It's there. It's like if you had money in the bank, it's there. But if you don't know the account number, you can't access it. There's organizations, at least in America, I'm sure all over the world, that help people find their own money. And also everywhere in the world, people lose their luggage in airplanes, trains, buses. They forget something. And in every country, they have some way to collect this, and they try to find the owners. Yeah, so it's there, but somehow you've lost it. So this advancement, just Bilva Mangala Thakur is a very good example of this. So Bilva Mangala Thakur, in his previous life, he was at the stage of bhava. And because of that, he took birth in a Brahmana family, very nice devotee family. But they were also very rich, and he became bewildered by this wealth. And he was very attached to this girlfriend. Prabhupada said, in the West you call girlfriend, in India we call prostitute. Anyway, he became attached to his girlfriend, Chintamani. And it was so extreme that at his father's funeral, he was telling the priest, hurry up, I need to go see somebody. And then it was a big storm, right? You all know the story. He crossed the river holding onto a corpse. He climbed, because she thought it's a storm, he's not coming today. She closed everything. He climbed the building with a snake. And then she said, if you loved God the way you love me, then you'd be a pure devotee. Immediately, he remembered. Immediately, the bhava for Krishna that he'd had from another life, it came back. It's like he got his password. And he saw, I have this. But even then, it wasn't so easy, because he had developed this bad habit. So he thought, now I'm going to go to Vrindavan. And again, he saw some woman, and not just some woman, she was somebody's wife. And then he made himself blind. So that's a very good story like that. His bhava wasn't gone. It wasn't gone. But he had to access it again. And then even after he accessed it again, there was still some struggle because of his past habits. So we should also be very careful. If we just because somebody falls, it doesn't mean they weren't advanced. It's interesting when you talk about karma, because some of our acharyas talk about karma with bharats fall down. So there's some difference of opinion. Some people say bharats fall down with the deer was the will of God to set an example, and he didn't really fall at all. And some of the acharyas say this was due to his past karma. Sometimes they say it's because he had not given up the upadi of being a kshatriya. As a kshatriya, you have to take care of all your praja. You have to take care of all of your citizens, and that he had some attachment that I have to be the caretaker of this deer. And that residue of this upadi, it pushed him to take you. So different opinions. What I find the most interesting about Bharat is at the end of his dear life, he thought of the Lord. And I was just reading in Jiva Goswami's Bhakti Sandarbha, the Bhagavatam gives a prayer that Bharat, as a deer, said at the end of his life. And Jiva Goswami was saying, how can a deer say a prayer? And he says was given to him by the mercy of the Lord. But we may think, he's dying. Yam yam vapisram bhavam twajachante kalevram. He's dying. Is this deer? He's thinking of Krishna. Why does he take another birth? I've never gotten the answer to that. I've had this question for a very, very, very long time. Because Gajendra, Jiva Goswami was talking about Gajendra and Bharat. And Gajendra, he remembers the Lord. And to Vaikuntha, Bharat, he remembers the Lord and he takes birth again.
Start chanting Hare Krishna, most karma gets extinguished.
Yes.
At the time of initiation, the guru is getting almost a clean devotee. Sometimes guru said, I am taking the karma of my devotee.
But they've already been
ready, because holy name itself can take you back.
Yes, one that doesn't even wait for initiation. So we'll end briefly with saying, why do we have to care where anybody else is? I can understand why I have to know where I am. And again, this is not something I should be thinking about all the time or even every day. Mostly I should be thinking, how am I going to serve my guru? How am I going to serve Krishna? How am I going to serve the mission? And just focusing on deepening my Krishna consciousness. Just like if you're driving somewhere, mostly you're focusing on driving. But sometimes you have to notice, am I on the right road? And how far did I get? Like Bhaktisiddhanta tells the story of the wedding party that was crossing a river, and they're rowing and rowing and rowing and rowing and rowing, and in the morning they didn't get anywhere because their anchor was in. So if I only focus on my rowing, I may not be making progress. But generally, I focus on my rowing, but sometimes I have to look around and say, where am I? And we look at subjective and objective. So far in this section of the 11th canto, we've been looking at kavis, been looking at subjective, and so therefore Maharaj Nimi is saying, okay, what about the objective? So I can see why I have to do that for myself. Why do I have to do it for others? And it's dangerous to do this for others, my dear friends. It's very dangerous to try to evaluate others' positions, because I can't see their subjective, and because they may be very advanced in one thing and very neophyte in something else. So if I'm just looking at what they're neophyte in, I'll make a wrong judgment, and if I just look at what they're advanced in, I'll make a wrong judgment. So why do I have to do this at all? And this is because I have to associate, and I have to associate differently with different people. I'm not supposed to be an impersonalist that I just associate with everyone the same. And we talked about this yesterday. Narada Muni says something amazing in the 4th canto. He says that if we just associate properly with others, devotees and non-devotees, we will not feel any of the material miseries. If I'm feeling the material miseries, there's something wrong with how I'm associating with others. That doesn't mean no miseries will happen to you. That's not possible. Narada Muni is not saying you will not break your arm. He's saying if you break your arm, it will not disturb you. What a wonderful question. Is it okay to be happy in the material world? What a wonderful, I am so enlivened by the fact that you asked this question. Is it all right to be happy in the material world? So let's just say the answer to that is no. Okay, everybody. You may not be happy. When you die, and you go back to Godhead, then you can be happy. But as long as you're here, make sure you are not happy. There have been many religions who speak like this. Many. They're called world-denying religions. There are religions where it's against their rules to sing. There are religions where it's against their rules to play instruments while you sing, where it's against the rules to dance. Well, you can do things, but you're not allowed to enjoy them. And if you get, you can praise God, but you better not enjoy it. Mahaprabhu has this prayer in the Shikshashtaka. When will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? The question may be asked, why does Mahaprabhu desire to experience symptoms of ecstasy? Isn't that self-serving? When will I feel ecstasy? Well, that's about you, isn't it? What is the greatest gift, the only gift that we can give the Lord? I know he says, Patram pushpram palam tvayam yome bhakta prachya. I know that. But can you really give him a flower? It's his flower. Here, Krishna, here's your flower. Here's your water. Here's your leaf. What can I give him? Can I give him money? Time? Love. How do I know that someone loves me? They dedicate themselves to me. Could I dedicate myself to you without loving you? Could I give my time to you without loving you? So if I love you, I will dedicate my time and energy to you. But I can dedicate my time and energy and not love you. Just like if it's raining, this is a logic lesson. If it's raining, there must be clouds. Can there be clouds without rain? Yes. There's something that if I love you, I will do. And I can only do it because I love you. There can be business, but what is actually, if I really love you, there's something that I will do. I can give time to you for another reason, though. Thank you. I find pleasure in you. I can give you my time and energy and money without loving you at all. I could give you my time and energy and money for 1,000 reasons that have nothing to do with love at all. Am I correct? I could talk about you all day and praise you all day. That has nothing to do with love. In my country right now, so our president is in trouble. At least I hope he's in trouble. But anyway, so his friends are still saying, we are your friends. Do you think they're his friends because they love him? I don't know if you follow the news at all. I guarantee you they are not his friends because they love him. They are his friends because he can do something for them. That's all. The greatest gift I can give somebody is that I feel happy for their happiness. I feel happy in their presence. The things that they do with me and for me give me joy. If you cook for someone, what do you want them to do? Enjoy the food. Did you like the idli? No. I ate it just out of duty. Huh? So if you're thinking of marrying someone and the boy says, I don't really like being with you, but my parents said I had to marry you, so, but I actually don't get any pleasure being with you. I'm just doing this as an austerity. Oh my God. What we offer to Krishna is our ecstasy, our happiness at Him. When we're happy to see the deity, when we're happy to hear His name, when we're happy to smell the flowers offered to Him. Oh, these were your flowers. Uddhava says in the 11th canto, I conquer illusion by taking your prasadam. When we're happy to take the prasadam, we will be very happy today to take prasadam, I'm sure. When we're happy to speak about Him. And the happier we are, if we become so happy that we cannot even contain it. Right? We had the verse Rukmini spoke on. That you dance like a madman, you don't even care for out. You're so happy. Just like sometimes at an airport, some person is coming home after a long absence. Maybe they were working abroad or they were in the military, and they come home, and people, they forget that there's outsiders. They forget, they lose their decorum, yes? They get so excited, they will behave in public in a way they normally, because they're just so happy to see this person. That's why people like to have a dog. Because after you've been away for a long time and you come back, the dog doesn't care about public opinion. They just jump on you, yeah, and they lick your face. Yes, yes. But that's very, and the person enjoys. We used to have ducks because they would eat the bugs in the garden. And I didn't like to poison the bugs. I thought I would get ducks. They were very good, by the way. Ducks are very good at eating the bugs in the garden. And it was very funny because the children and I fed the ducks and took care of them. My husband did nothing for the ducks, but they really liked my husband. I don't know why. They really liked him. And they could understand the sound of his car. And we lived on a corner, and as soon as he was coming down the road, before he would even turn the corner, they would hear the sound of his car, and they would go to the gate. They would rattle. And he always enjoyed this. He'd come home and he'd be greeted by the ducks. He never fed them anything, no, nothing. But he would immediately smile. Oh, I'm being greeted by the ducks. So Krishna likes it when we're so happy that we cannot even contain it. When the devotee has so much ecstasy, they're crying, they're shivering, they're stunned. Krishna becomes very happy. Of course, we should not, as followers of Srila Prabhupada, we are supposed to try to control these things and keep them internal for many reasons. But that is the only gift we can give to Krishna, is our love. And love means that we're very happy. And then you say, well, does that mean I should only be happy when I see the deities, and when I take prasadam, and I'm chanting, and when I go to school I should be miserable? Not only is it not wrong, it's wanted. If we see the universe as the body of God, we read this in a few verses back. And you know, even our physical health, if one is thinking, I have duties to do, I don't like to do them, I will do them because I have to, it can actually make you sick. Literally. There's so much evidence that people who are grateful and joyful are healthier. You can get rid of chronic illnesses just by being grateful and joyful. Prabhupada says without being joyful, you cannot make any advancement. Now, if you are joyful in school because you're thinking, I'm so smart, that's a problem. Then that's Rajagun happiness. But if you're thinking, I'm doing this for Krishna, wow, look how Krishna's arranged the laws of the universe, how he's arranged mathematics. Find Krishna in it and be joyful. And we want, what did Prabhupada say? One should not experience just a thrill one time, but one should be experiencing a thrill at every moment. And that is one of the measures, that is a subjective measure. One of the subjective measures of our advancement in Krishna consciousness is everything acts as an udipan. Everything. Prabhupada said if you can't chant Hare Krishna, then you can hear Krishna in all the sounds of the world. And then the birds and all these things, you will feel, there's Krishna, there's Krishna. So one of the measures of how much we're advancing is how much I am feeling joy and gratitude and connection at every moment, everywhere. It doesn't matter I'm at school, it doesn't matter whether I'm in a shop, I'm on the road, I'm seeing the deity. This is one of the subjective ways that I can gauge, am I progressing in Krishna consciousness? And then you can be happy. And we can be happy, yes. Okay, so we don't have time to talk about the 6 loving exchanges. So we'll just end by saying that Narada Muni says that if we treat those higher than us with joy and service, if we treat those equal to us with friendship, and we treat those lower to us with compassion, then we will always be happy. We will never experience any of the material miseries. And that is why we need to have these understanding of others, but to remember that some people will be higher than us in one way and lower than us in another way, and I can relate to, therefore, the same person differently about different things. So even with the same person, in some things I may compassionately help them, and in other things I may joyfully serve them. So in other things I may be their friend. Some people I'm just their friend, some people I'm just serving them, some people I'm just helping them, but others it may be a variety in different things. So this is a very personal philosophy. So thank you for your dedication in this very, 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 very long class on this day of the solar eclipse. And of course, this day of the solar eclipse, we can think about Krishna, who went, where did he go on the solar eclipse? To Kurukshetra. And this is a very amazing pastime. Bhaktisiddhanta says this is the pastime where the residents of Vrindavan are feeling the greatest need. They're with Krishna, but it's in the wrong place. We were talking about somebody coming back after a long absence. So if someone comes back after a long absence, but you're in a public place, you know, you want to embrace them, you want to speak intimately with them, but you cannot. And so the desire is very strong because this long absence, but you cannot act on it. And therefore there is the mood of the residents. We want to bring Krishna back on the Rath Yatra. We want to bring Krishna back to Vrindavan, and it starts with this eclipse. So, and I could have just had a class on the eclipse today, but I decided to talk on the verse. But I would suggest if you spend some time today, there are several chapters in the Krishna book and in the Bhagavatam.
11:19 is the time.
11:19.
So, those who have not completed the rounds, the remaining time they can finish. And 11:20 they can take bath.
Take bath at 11:20.
Usually it says one should go to the river.
Or the sea.
River, we can go to the beach and take bath.
Well, the sea is there because all the rivers go into the sea. So it's stated in the Bhagavatam, if you don't have the opportunity to bathe in a holy river, you can bathe in the sea. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.